Of all the interviews you did in your What is a Woman documentary, which one, I mean, you had your poker face on throughout it, talking to some really kooky and disingenuous people. Was there a particular interview or moment which shocked you the most?
I think there were certainly moments in each interview that were really unsettling. And especially, we talked to Scott Nugent, who's a female transitioned to a male and is now speaking out about the horrors of this so-called gender affirmation surgery. And she said a lot about just the details of what these surgeries actually entail and what happens after the fact that I didn't know and I found shocking. But from each interview, especially on the other side with the proponents, the people that are pushing this stuff, what surprised me was just the fact that they couldn't answer any questions at all. I knew that they couldn't answer the question, what is a woman? That's the whole premise of the film, that they wouldn't be able to answer it. If they could answer, then the movie wouldn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. But what I didn't realize is that they can't answer any other question. Like, I had a lot of questions that I wanted to ask leading up to that question. Mm-hmm. And I thought at least the initial questions I asked would be pretty easy. The kind of softballs, they'd be able to handle that and we could just move along. What I found is that these interviews got very tense very quickly, much quicker than I thought, because the moment I asked even one real question, like an actual question that I wanted an answer to, and that was not an opportunity for them to just give a stump speech, the moment I did that, things started to fall apart. Yeah. Because they started to think, oh, wait a second, this is not someone who necessarily shares all of my presuppositions. And then they get defensive, and almost immediately they want to walk out of the interview, which is why we heard, most of our interviews either threatened to walk out or actually did walk out. And not because of any gotcha questions. It's not like I went in there and got some gotcha thing and I'm, just basic questions they can't answer.
Yeah, the one that shocked me the most, I think maybe two moments. The one with the university professor, I think here in Tennessee, mm-hmm. When he, kept saying, you keep using the word truth, and that word truth is condescending and deeply transphobic.
Rude. It's rude to say truth, yeah.
It's rude. Yeah, that one, that just, I almost wanted to jump in the screen and grab the guy because he was so sneaky, and everything was just, I was like, this is just not an honest person who's standing on any type of foundation at all. And considering that's an educator, and there are thousands, Lord knows how many people like that across the country, that's really concerning. And then of course that the woman with the blue hair who, when you asked about the Lupron drug, and she took exception to the word drug and then started to noticeably shift around, and you could see, oh, okay, she's, you've hit that sore point right there where she's going to have to admit vocally what she is actually doing and advocating for. And I think it says a lot when, number one, when people are not willing to answer honest questions. Mm-hmm. That's a big red flag. And number two, when people are not willing to vocally say in clear words, not with euphemisms, but to say what they actually believe and stand for and are advocating. Because there's all these euphemisms people can use on various issues and make it sound fluffy and nice and so on. But when you really get down to it, it's like what you are saying and what you are doing, it's indefensible and it's not right, which is why you're not willing to stand on it. And so for me, those two moments when I watched it really, really stuck out.
Yeah, I think, you said it before, that there's so many lies that they tell around this to protect it. And when you start telling lies, as everyone knows, you start telling lies and then you got to tell another lie on top of that one and another one. This is like every episode of Seinfeld with George Costanza. It's like, that's the humor is it's just one lie after another after another. And it's a kind of a similar thing I noticed in these interviews with these people, that the first question you ask, because they can't answer any question, and they know that, and because they know that at the core of their ideology is just this hollowness, it's totally empty. And so there's this game of evasion, and you ask one question, and they kind of evade it, and they give a dishonest answer. Then you ask another question that's built on that question, and it's like this pile of lies. And after a while, they're backed into a corner, that I didn't back them into. They backed themselves into a corner where they have to say these just wild things, like Forcier, the blue hair one, talking about the gender identity of chickens and do chickens cry? Can chickens commit suicide? It's like she didn't sit down wanting to say any of that, but this is just through questions she put herself in a position where she couldn't even affirm that only female chickens lay eggs. She couldn't do it. So she had to make up some story about chickens and their gender identity and crying chickens. It's like, this is what ends up happening. She also wouldn't affirm that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Like she put herself in a position where she literally, as a doctor, could not even say Santa Claus doesn't exist. Yeah. Because if she had said that, then she would be admitting that, first of all, there is a reality, a truth, and there are certain things people can say that aren't true. And she'd also be admitting that children are prone to believing, wild things, and children don't have a real firm grasp on reality, which is why you can convince them that a fat man is flying through the air at lightning speeds delivering presents, right? And if that's the case, that children don't have a firm grasp on reality, then how could they possibly make statements about their gender that we should take seriously? So she recognizes all these problems in her own worldview, and so she has to keep saying things to avoid the problems. And I think that ends up being a lot of the humor in the film, but also a lot of the what's disturbing and frustrating.
Absolutely. And how's the feedback been overall? Because it must be coming in from all angles over the past week.
Yeah, it's been pretty overwhelming, honestly. We knew we had something special with the film. Certainly, once we had finished it and finished filming everything and put it together, but even before that, I think it was after we did the first interview, which was with the therapist. Who is the first interview in the film? Also, the therapist who was willing to affirm me as a woman, because I like scented candles and I've seen Sex and the City. And after that, we kind of looked at each other and we left that interview and was like, well, we got something here. Yeah. And we knew also that this is the strategy, because we weren't quite sure either, like, how do we go into these interviews? What should we be doing? There was a part of me that I wanted to go in there and like call these people to account and argue with them. But after that, we realized, no, this is just play it totally straight, you know? And so we knew we had that, but it was also a question to me of how the people respond to it, and would we be able to, which was our goal, get this film outside of the conservative podcast audience bubble where I spend most of my time. Can we create something that breaks through that and connects with a larger audience, including an audience of people that don't all identify as political conservatives? And I was kind of skeptical about whether we'd be able to achieve that. But so far, it's worked, I think.
That's awesome, man. No, the documentary's been fantastic. I've watched it twice, and I've shared it with a lot of people. And honestly, like, I like to give props where props are due. And I don't think that very many people could have done it so well. I think your personality type and your ability to deliver that, and honestly, to not laugh out loud at some stuff, and also to not get visibly angry at some of that stuff, like, it's not easy. It's not easy, because I myself was watching, and I've got a very cool head, and I myself was like, man, I don't know if I would have been able to hold my composure when that person just said that thing. So congrats on the documentary. Before we wrap up, is there what's the main message that you'd want people, is there a particular message you want people to get from it or to think about?
I think one thing we wanted people to take away from this is, on kind of the negative end, is just how bad this is, and how pervasive it is, and that it's not just some fringe thing on TikTok or whatever you want to tell yourself, that this is everywhere, and you have to confront it. It's not an option to just hide somewhere and then hope it all just goes away and everyone wakes up one day sane again. That's not going to happen unless we make it happen. So that's the one thing. And I've heard that from a lot of people, actually. It's like they told me, well, I didn't know how bad it was until I saw the film. So that's good. It's not good that it's so bad, but it's good that people are taking that away from it. But then on the positive side, once you've realized how bad it is, the next thing I want people to realize from the film is, as we talked about, how beatable this ideology is and how to beat it. And the way you beat it is by first of all, being willing to stand up and look it in the eyes and ask good questions. That's it. Just ask. A little bit of skepticism is all that's needed.